Hey there, my name is Kazak and welcome to my new player's guide for Frost Death Knight in The War Within. This guide is targeted towards players who are new to the spec or haven't played the spec in a long time, and you're just looking for some basics to help you jump right in. More nuanced points are covered in my Wowhead guide that I will link down in the description, and that's where you can find the most up-to-date info, video content, especially at a time of rapid changes like around an expansion launch. So it tends to be prone to going out of date, so I'm going to try to focus on just high-level concepts here, stuff that I don't think is really likely to change anytime soon, so that this guide is relevant for longer. So first, to go ahead and answer maybe some big questions. First one to probably tackle is two-hand or dual wield, and the short answer is dual wield for this patch. If you're not familiar, Frost can use a two-hander or it can dual wield, and there's some important distinctions between the two. It's not just they've normalized the weapons, everything's fine. The main difference is in crit autos and this passive here, Might of the Frozen Wastes. So when you're two-handing, your obliterates do 30% extra damage, and all of your critical auto attacks give you a killing machine proc. This buff is intended to make two-hand compete on par with dual wielding because dual wielding has two big advantages. One is that in the critical auto attack talents like Killing Machine or Icy Death Torrent, and both of these talents technically have a higher proc rate for two-hand. However, dual wield attacks so much faster that dual wielding gets a much better volume of procs, and so it will have more Killing Machines, more Icy Death Torrent naturally over time. And the other advantage is that you get two rune forges. In this case I have Razor Ice and Fallen Crusader on. Another good option is Stoneskin Gargoyle if you're playing particular builds. These make dual wielding generally better. Two-hand has its moments, and this 30% obliterate damage tends to do better in Mythic Plus, where Cleaving Strikes comes into play. But this patch, because of especially Icy Death Torrent, dual wielding just looks to lead. Next big thing, Deathbringer or Riders. Currently it looks like Deathbringer for Raid, possibly Riders in Mythic Plus, possibly Deathbringer. Seems a little more open to personal preference. I'll be in Deathbringer for this video, but if you want to play Riders, switching between the two is very easy. The only thing you really need to know is that with Deathbringer, you want to use Reaper's Mark before Pillar of Frost. And if you're playing Riders, you want to use Frostworm's Fury with Pillar whenever possible. And that's the biggest rotational impact from these. There's subtler points, but again, I'm just trying to cover high level concepts in this video. And maybe we'll do some more like in-depth videos later. So as far as talent builds, what I'll show off today is what I'll call the Shattering build. A lot of people call it Dual Obliteration, but I'm going with the Shattering build to help make it stand out a little bit more and to emphasize that what makes this build special is this talent here, Shattering Blade, that empowers your Frost Strikes whenever you use it on an enemy with 5 stacks of Razor Ice, and following node Shattered Frost, which gives an AoE component to the same effect. This is a fairly popular build right now, and it's one that I expect to see be a go-to, especially in keys. If you just kind of want a general all-purpose build, this one is a good one to learn the spec with. As far as important things to point out in this tree, I don't want to get too much into the nitty-gritty here, but one big thing to be aware of is this talent here, Arctic Assault, that triggers a free glacial advance when we consume Killing Machine. This is going to do a lot of work in AoE, and this is a full power glacial advance, so it's going to apply Razor Ice as well and help us stack it up for Shattering Blade. And it especially is important in AoE, where as you're firing off your Killing Machines, you're going to stack up Razor Ice on a couple different targets at once, and then you'll be able to rapidly consume them with Shattered Frost. So now let's go ahead and do an opener real quick. It's pretty straightforward for this build. All we're looking to do is get into cooldowns as quickly as possible. And so we will hit Abomination Limb as we run in, because we don't need it for anything else than damage in this situation. Then we'll hit Remorseless Winter, so we can start stacking Gathering Storm, which buffs from Remorseless Winter whenever we spend runes. And then we will apply Reaper's Mark to our main target and then go into our Pillar of Frost window, which will just look like hitting Pillar of Frost, Howling Blast, and Empower Rune Weapon together. Pillar of Frost and Empower Rune Weapon are off the global cooldown. So I've got them macroed to Howling Blast here, and I'll explain that more in a moment. Let's go ahead and go here. And now we'll just do a normal weave of our globals during Pillar of Frost. We're making sure we're making the most of the Obliteration passive. That makes our Frost Strike and Howling Blast generate Killing Machine procs every time we use them inside Pillar of Frost. Now, if I were in AoE, I would use Frostrim's Fury inside Pillar of Frost. Against a single target, the usage is a little trickier, a little more nuanced. You're basically looking to see if you can line it up with Fallen Crusader, with Bone Grinder, but you generally don't expect to be using this in single target much at all. So general usage guideline is send it towards the end of Pillar with Fallen Crusader. If you don't get Fallen Crusader, then you just send it anyways. If you start Pillar and have Fallen Crusader, then you could also send it there. So now let's go ahead and look at another Pillar window here, a little more in depth. So we'll set one up, Remorseless Winter, Reaper's Mark. I'm gonna go into it with Frost Strike this time. And you can see I'm just alternating my globals here. Now when it comes to what you should hit between Frost Strike and Howling Blast, it depends on a couple of things. The first one is, do you have 5 stacks of Razor Ice up? If you do, then you definitely prefer Frost Strike. If they don't have Frost Fear on them, you would prefer Howling Blast. The other question is, do you have enough runes to spend the next Killing Machine? So I'm going to go here. Now here I've already got a Killing Machine proc and I'm going to hit Pillar. So I'm going to hit Pillar with Obliterate. And so now in this state, I'm going to go ahead and, since I'm running out of Icy Talons, I'm going to Frost Strike to build that back up, consume the Killing Machine procs, and then hit that again. So now we've got our main buffs, and now at this point, I've got a Rime proc, but Frost Fever's up, so we're going to go ahead and consume that, and then consume the Rime proc. It's a little bit tricky to show in real time and explain it, especially if you haven't done this a whole lot yet. I would definitely say go practice a little bit yourself, and then I'll throw up the order from the rotation tool on Wowhead, because I think that explains it a little bit more clearly. And then finally, to end it here, let's run over to a couple of AoE dummies and play with how the spec will work in AoE. So opener is pretty much the same. The neat thing about Frost and its kind of main advantage is it does all of its AoE damage almost exactly the same way it does its single target damage. It doesn't need to like change too many talents, change its rotation. It just cleaves off of its main target and it does its AoE. The main difference here is that after we start Pillar, we'll drop Death and Decay to activate cleaving strikes. So same idea here. Remorseless Winter, Mark. We're going to apply our Frost Fever, drop Death and Decay, and start weaving our globals. So now here we can look for other targets that have 5 stacks of Razor Ice and just jump between them. The other thing to be careful of here is, especially in AoE, make sure that you are keeping your Frost Fever up. Frost Fever is going to give you a little bit of runic power, and it's a good chunk of damage in AoE, especially if you have Wither Away talented. So in a build like this, you're going to find that you're going to spend most of your time consuming Killing Machine or frost striking targets that have 5 stacks of Razor Ice, but you don't want to completely ignore Rhine. You want to make sure that you're still using that filler when it's appropriate. As far as death and decay usage, the main thing to focus on for now is that after you start Pillar and you have a Killing Machine proc like this, drop death and decay and then start alternating. You want to try to fit as many Killing Machines in this death and decay as you can. Hopefully this helps you out, helps you with sort of just getting your feet wet on Frost. If you have questions or if there's something particular you want to see covered in more detail, let me know. I'll look to do some more in-depth videos later once the major tuning seems to be out of the way. And I suppose one last thing, because it's going to be asked about anyways, even though I'll just say the answer is sim yourself, is what stats do I want? And the answer to that is you want as much crit as you can get right now, and then that should be followed by mastery most of the time. Obviously right now in this week it's kind of just get whatever stats you can. There's not a ton of gear out there, but when you're crafting your sparks or you're looking for rings, things like that, you really want crit, and then mastery is the preferred next stat. But again, sim yourself, let the robot worry about it. That's all I've got this time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.